Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel for more sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, on Saturday, there's going to be two football teams that are going to be playing each other that are 3 0, but they're not necessarily two teams that you would normally think that are 3 0. The Duke Blue Devils and the Kansas Jayhawks are both 3 0 in football this year, and Duke, they're 3 0 and their wins are over Temple. They beat Temple 30 to nothing. They won at Northwestern 31 to 23, and they beat North Carolina A&T 49 to 20. So their most impressive win was at Northwestern, but Northwestern just lost to Southern Illinois, and they did beat Northwestern did beat Nebraska, but Nebraska's not very good. So we don't really know how good Duke is based off those results. The at Northwestern game is decent. It's a decent win, but Northwestern's not looking very good. Obviously, Mike Elko is in his first season as head coach, replacing David Cutcliffe, who basically, I guess you could say, retired. And Mike Elko is, his first year head coach, so you don't really know much about him. You don't really know much about this Duke Blue Devil team, but they are 3-0. Riley Leonard is their quarterback, and he had 2 touchdowns and an interception against North Carolina A&T, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground, so he is a dual threat quarterback. And that's always a good sign at a school like Duke, where normally when you're not as good, your offensive line is not as good, and when you have a scrambling quarterback, that can help you win games, because when you have a pocket passer and you can't protect the quarterback when you're not a very good team on the offensive line, that always helps. Running back Jalen Coleman, he had 51 yards and a touchdown against North Carolina A&T. Wide receiver Samir Hagans had 48 yards against North Carolina A&T. And on the defensive side of the ball, you got defensive backs Jalen Stinson. He had 5 tackles against North Carolina A&T. And defensive tackle Anais Peebles had a tackle, and linebacker Rocky Shelton II had a tackle. So again, Duke on the defensive side of the ball looking better. They only have given up 23 points as the most against Northwestern, but again, they have not really played too many good teams yet, so we just don't really know how good that they are. On the Kansas side, we have a little bit more information on Kansas. Kansas is 3-0. Lance Leopold, he's in his second season, and we know last year Kansas famously beat Texas for the first time in a long time, and Texas obviously was not playing very well last year, but they're 3-0 as well. Their wins are over Tennessee Tech 56 to 10, so again, they blew out a bad team, but they've won at West Virginia in overtime 55-42, and they won at Houston 48 to 30. So those are 2 really good wins for Kansas. So definitely Kansas has the upper edge on Duke here, with the fact that we know that they've beaten 2 decent opponents. Again, Lance Leopold, he's coming in from Buffalo because he was the Buffalo coach, and he can coach. I mean, he's really turning Kansas around. Quarterback Jalen Daniels, he's replaced Jason Bean from last year. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns against Houston. And again, this kind of is the same thing with Riley Leonard for Duke. When you have a running quarterback with a team that doesn't really protect you very well, that always helps because you can escape pressure and avoid injury. Running back Devin Neal had 54 yards. The running game's not doing as much because Jalen Daniels does a lot of it for them. A lot of teams do that, kind of like Malik Cunningham at Louisville and other schools. When the quarterback runs more than the running back, then the quarterback usually has more yards. Wide receiver Lawrence Arnold, he had 24 yards. So again, they spread the ball around with all the receivers against Houston. Not one receiver had a lot of yards. It was a lot of they spread the wealth around. And on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Craig Young had 7 tackles. Defensive end Lonnie Phelps had 4 tackles. And safety Kenny Logan Jr. had 3 tackles and an interception. So again, Kansas, they're playing a lot better on defense than they have. They did give up 42 to West Virginia and 30 to Houston. But again, they are playing better because they used to give up like 60. So their defense is improving. Their offense is a lot better because they've scored 55, 56, and 48. Again, who's going to win this game? Duke. We don't know how good Duke is yet because, again, their best win is at Northwestern, and it's a decent win, but Northwestern has not really proven to be that good of a team so far. Kansas has 2 good wins at West Virginia in overtime and at Houston, so I'd have to give the advantage to Kansas there. I would say Kansas probably has a little bit better of a roster than Duke because Lance Leopold's gotten a lot of transfers in. Duke has as well, but Kansas I think has done a little bit better in the portal than Duke has. I think Kansas for now as the more proven coach. Maybe Mike Elko can be really good for Duke in the future, but we don't really know yet in his first season. Or Lance Leopold, he's been there for 2 seasons now, and obviously he was at Buffalo, and we know what he did there. So I'm going to have to give the advantage to Kansas. This game is at Kansas, too. Duke is traveling on the road at Kansas. I know they beat Northwestern on the road, but Kansas is going to be a little bit tougher. I'm going to have Kansas winning 38-24. I think Duke can pull the upset and win, but I think Kansas is a much better team this year. I think they're a little bit better than Duke. I think they have the better coach right now because Mike Elko has less experience than Lance Leipold. Not saying that Mike Elko can't coach. And the home field advantage for Kansas is enough to put them over the top 38-24. Subscribe to the channel for more sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about this Duke-Kansas football game, and who do you think the historically bad football team is going to start 4-0, and I will see you next time.